The morning rain at Fort Bragg fell like spent brass, cold and relentless. Captain Vera Cross pressed her spine against concrete that smelled of cordite and decades of fear. 40 soldiers stood in formation at the firing range, their M4 carbines barking in rhythmic succession. Each report split the air like a whip crack. Each one drove invisible nails through Vera's skull. Her hands covered her ears. Useless. The sound penetrated bone, carved channels through memory, dragged her back to places she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Mosul, the marketplace, blood on sand, her brother's last breath whistling through a punctured lung. Sergeant Kyle Brennan stood 6'3" with a buzz cut sharp enough to cut glass. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, pale against weathered skin. 2 tour Afghanistan, 1 Iraq, a chest full of ribbons and 0 patience for weakness. He walked the line behind the shooters, correcting stances with sharp words and sharper eyes. When he reached the end, he turned, looked straight at the woman curled in the corner like a broken bird. "Captain Cross," his voice carried over the gunfire, "you're up." Vera didn't move, couldn't. Her body had locked down, every muscle rigid, breath coming in shallow gasps through her teeth. The scars on her hands throbbed. Circular patterns, entry wounds, the kind you get from nail guns when someone wants information but doesn't want you dead. Not yet. Not until you've told them everything. Brennan walked over. His boots splashed through puddles that reflected gray sky. When he got close enough, he saw her hands properly, saw the scars forming constellations of old violence. His expression shifted, not quite to sympathy, more like recognition. He'd seen damaged soldiers before, plenty of them, but something about this one didn't fit the usual pattern. "Ma'am," softer now, "what happened to you?" Vera looked up. Her eyes were hazel, shot through with gold and completely hollow. "Mosul, 2019. I was the only one who came back." The words hung there between them. Brennan knew Mosul 2019. Everyone did. The operation that went so wrong it got scrubbed from official records. 12 Delta operators sent in to extract a high-value target. 3 came out. The rest died in an ambush so perfectly executed it had to be an inside job. But the reports said no medics were involved. No women, just shooters. "You were medical support." "I was a lot of things." Brennan studied her face, looking for the lie, found only pain buried so deep it had fossilized. He made a decision, nodded once. "Take the day, Captain. We'll get you qualified before deployment." He walked away, left her there in the corner. The other soldiers were watching now, whispering. Private Ortiz, 26 and fresh from engineer school, leaned to Specialist Webb and said something that made Webb shake his head. Whatever illusions the unit had about their new senior medic, the rain was washing them away. Vera waited until the range cleared, until the last echo of gunfire faded into the pines. Then she stood, walked to the firing line, picked up a rifle someone had left behind, forgotten in the rush to get out of the weather. The M4 felt like coming home and going to hell in the same heartbeat. She checked the chamber, clear, checked the magazine, empty, performed a functions check with movements so smooth they looked like muscle memory carved by 10,000 repetitions. She set the rifle down carefully, walked away. Behind her, unnoticed in the rain, Specialist Marcus Webb stood in the doorway of the range shack, watching. Webb had a bachelor's degree from Harvard, a medical discharge for anxiety, and eyes that noticed things other people missed. He'd noticed the way Vera's hands moved on that rifle. Expert level, competition level, the kind of proficiency that took years to build and never fully went away. He pulled out his phone, started a search. Captain Vera Cross, medical officer, Johns Hopkins class of 2020, clean record. No deployments listed before 2022, no social media, no digital footprint that extended back further than 4 years. Like she'd been born fully formed in 2020, degree in hand, trauma already installed. Webb saved the search, pocketed his phone, walked back into the rain. In the barracks, Vera sat on her bunk. The room smelled like boot polish and old sweat and the particular loneliness of military life. Her locker stood open. Inside, medical textbooks stacked with geometric precision, a single change of civilian clothes and nothing personal. No photos, no letters, no evidence of a life before or beyond this moment. Under her mattress, hidden in a slit she'd cut in the fabric, 3 prescription bottles. Prazosin for the nightmares, sertraline for the depression, propranolol for the physical symptoms of trauma that manifested every time someone slammed a door or dropped a tray or laughed too loud. She dry swallowed 2 pills from each bottle, chased them with water from a plastic bottle that tasted like it had been sitting in the sun too long. The door opened. Corporal Jenna Ortiz walked in, water dripping from her patrol cap. Young face, hard eyes, first deployment coming fast. She joined to pay for college and found out too late that war wasn't like the commercials. "Cap, you okay? You missed mess." "Not hungry." Ortiz sat on the bunk across, studied Vera the way you study a puzzle missing pieces. "Brennan's pissed, says you're deadweight before we even roll out." "He's right." "Bullshit." Ortiz pulled folded papers from her pocket, deployment orders. "I read your file, Johns Hopkins, top of your surgical class. Why'd you enlist? Why not come in as a commissioned medical officer?" "To forget." "Forget what?" Vera didn't answer, just stared at the wall where someone had scratched days left, 0 into the paint. A previous occupant counting down to something. Freedom or death or just the next duty station. All the same in the end. Ortiz left the papers on the bunk, stood. "We deploy in 96 hours. Iraq, convoy security, Route Irish. You know Route Irish." Everyone knew Route Irish. The highway between Baghdad's Green Zone and the airport. 7 miles of IED alley. The most dangerous road in Iraq, maybe the most dangerous road in the world. 4,000 attacks in 5 years. The road that ate Humvees and MRAPs and soldiers and spit out twisted metal and body bags. Vera's hands started shaking, not tremors, full convulsions. She gripped the edge of the bunk until her knuckles went white. Ortiz noticed, started to say something, decided against it, left. Alone again, Vera opened the deployment orders. Read them 3 times. The words didn't change. She'd been hoping they might. That maybe this was a nightmare, another one to add to the collection, and she'd wake up somewhere else, someone else. But the paper was real. The orders were real. In 4 days she'd be back in Iraq. Back in the place where everything went wrong. She reached under her pillow. Found the photograph she kept there, hidden from casual inspection. 4 people in tactical gear, faces blurred by Photoshop or time or deliberate obscurity. She could still see them, though. Could name them: Frost, Reaper, Wraith. And in the center, smaller than the others, a woman who used to be called Revenant. Vera traced a finger over the 4th figure, whispered to the ghost in the picture, "I'm just a medic now, just a medic." The photograph didn't answer, never did. The next morning brought medical training. Combat Lifesaver certification, a requirement for deployment. Vera stood at the front of a classroom that smelled like disinfectant and fear, teaching 40 soldiers how to keep each other alive when the bullets started flying. Her hands were steady now. Prazosin and sertraline working their chemical magic. When she demonstrated tourniquet application on a training dummy, her movements were surgical, precise. No wasted motion. "Pressure here." She indicated the femoral artery, 2 inches above the wound. "Tighten until the bleeding stops. You'll know it's tight enough when the patient screams." Brennan sat in the back row, arms crossed, expression skeptical. "How come your hands don't shake when you're playing doctor?" Vera didn't look up from the dummy. continued wrapping the tourniquet with metronomic efficiency. Because this is about saving, not killing. In Iraq, you'll do both. No, I'll only do one. The certainty in her voice made several soldiers exchange glances. Brennan leaned forward. That's a nice philosophy, Captain. Reality's different. When someone's shooting at you, you shoot back. That's how it works. I know how it works. Do you? Vera finally met his eyes, held them. Something passed between them. A challenge, an understanding, a warning. Then Ortiz, trying to be helpful, picked up the metal equipment tray to move it closer. The tray slipped, hit the floor with a metallic crash that echoed off cinderblock walls. Vera moved. Didn't think, didn't choose, just reacted. She was under the table in half a second, hands over her head, body compressed into the smallest possible target. Her lips moved, forming words nobody could hear. Incoming, incoming, incoming. The room went silent. 40 sets of eyes staring at their senior medic curled beneath a folding table, reliving something that was happening somewhere else, sometime else. Webb moved first, knelt beside the table, slow and careful like approaching a wounded animal. Captain, you're safe. No incoming. It took 15 seconds for Vera to come back. When she did, the humiliation hit like a physical blow. She crawled out from under the table, face burning, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Brennan stood, addressed the room in a voice that cut through the awkward silence. And that's our senior medic, people. Inspiring, right? Laughter, nervous and mean and relieved all at once. Vera stood, brushed imaginary dust from her uniform, dismissed the class early, walked out while they were still packing up, while the whispers were just starting to build momentum. But Webb stayed behind, watched the doorway where she disappeared. He noticed something the others missed. The way Vera had moved under that table wasn't panic, it was tactical. She'd gone to cover, not into fetal position. Body perpendicular to the wall, minimizing her profile, hands protecting her head but eyes still open, still scanning. That was training. The kind drilled into you over years. The kind that saved lives when mortars started falling. Webb pulled up Vera's file on his phone again. Dug deeper. Found inconsistencies. Afghanistan 2015 listed on a medical clearance form, but Mosul 2019 on her trauma documentation. Johns Hopkins graduation 2020. The timeline didn't work. You couldn't be in Afghanistan in 2015 if you were in medical school until 2020, unless the file was wrong, or unless Vera Cross wasn't who she said she was. He saved his notes, made a mental reminder to talk to Brennan. Something about their new captain didn't add up. That night after the barracks lights went out, Vera lay on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. Sleep was a country she'd been exiled from. When she did manage to cross the border, the nightmares were waiting. So she stayed awake, counted ceiling tiles, counted her heartbeats, counted the days until Iraq. At 2200 hours, her phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. Colonel Durant needs to see you. His office, now. Vera stared at the message. Colonel Frank Durant commanded the battalion. 52 years old, son of a Gulf War veteran, career soldier who'd seen everything twice. He'd never summoned her before, never even spoken to her directly. This wasn't protocol. This was something else. She dressed, walked across the empty base under stars that looked like holes punched in black paper. Durant's office sat in a building that dated back to World War II, all brick and efficiency, and the ghosts of 70 years of soldiers passing through. Lights showed under the door. She knocked. Enter. Durant's office smelled like whiskey and old leather. The walls were covered in photographs. Desert Storm, his father's war. Iraq 2003, his war. Citations and commendations framed like trophies. On his desk, a bottle of Maker's Mark and 2 glasses. Durant stood behind the desk. Gray hair cut military short, lines on his face like topographic maps of hard decisions. He poured whiskey into both glasses, slid one across to Vera. "You drink, Captain." "No, sir." "You should start." He left the glass there anyway, sat down, drank from his own, studied her over the rim. "Your medical records show PTSD diagnosis. 3 psychiatrists recommended discharge." "I'm fit for duty, sir." "I didn't ask if you're fit, I'm telling you something." He set down his glass. "Someone wants you in Iraq specifically, someone above my pay grade. I don't know who, I don't know why, but orders came down with your name on them. Not a request for a medic, a request for you." Vera's throat went dry. "I don't understand." "Neither do I, but I've been doing this long enough to recognize when something stinks." He opened a drawer, pulled out a small card, handwritten in neat block letters, slid it across the desk. "When we get to Iraq, trust your instincts, not your orders." Vera picked up the card, read it. "Firebase Echo, Grid 3847 safe." "What is this?" "Insurance. If things go sideways, you run there, ask for Shepard." "Who's Shepard?" Durant didn't answer, just refilled his glass. "That's all, Captain." Dismissed. Vera stood. The card felt heavier than paper should. She folded it, tucked it into her pocket. At the door she paused. "Sir, why are you helping me?" Durant looked at her with eyes that had seen too much and forgot nothing. "Because Mosul 2019 wasn't your fault, and because whoever wants you back in Iraq doesn't have your best interests at heart." She left, walked back to the barracks with the card burning a hole in her pocket and questions multiplying in her head like cancer cells. How did Durant know about Mosul? How much did he know? And who was pulling strings to get her deployed to a war zone when her own psych evaluation said she was unfit? She didn't sleep that night either. 72 hours later, they loaded onto a C-130 Hercules at 300 hours. The plane smelled like hydraulic fluid and fear. 40 soldiers packed into webbed seats, full combat gear, weapons racked along the walls. The engine screamed. The deck vibrated. Vera sat alone in the back, as far from the weapons as the space allowed. She counted morphine syrettes from her medical kit. Once, twice, 3 times. Same result every time: 12 syrettes, 4 tourniquets, 6 Israeli bandages, 2 chest seals. The ritual of counting calmed her, gave her hand something to do besides shake. Brennan sat across the aisle, watching. He'd been watching since the range, since the classroom incident, watching and thinking and coming to conclusions he didn't like. "You count those every hour." Vera didn't look up. Muscle memory. "From what?" "Medical school." "Bullshit." Brennan leaned forward, kept his voice low enough that the engine noise covered it. "I've seen combat docs. They don't count supplies, they know by weight, by feel. They've handled them so many times they could inventory blind." "Then I guess I'm not a very good combat doc." "No, you're something else entirely." Before Vera could respond, the plane hit turbulence, not the gentle bumps of normal flight, the kind that felt like God slapping the aircraft with an open hand. The C-130 dropped 200 feet. Soldiers yelled, grabbed seats. Equipment shifted and creaked. One unsecured crate broke loose from its tie-downs, started sliding toward the back. Vera's eyes stayed closed, but her head tilted, listening, not to the chaos, to something underneath it: engine pitch, hydraulic pressure, the subtle changes in vibration that told a story. She spoke, quiet, almost to herself. "Left engine losing pressure. Pilot will compensate." 10 seconds of screaming metal and panicked voices later, the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, left engine's acting up. Nothing to worry about. We're adjusting. Brennan stared at Vera. How the fuck did you know that? She opened her eyes, met his gaze. Lucky guess. The turbulence worsened. The loose crate picked up speed, sliding across the deck toward where Ortiz sat frozen, eyes wide. 500 pounds of equipment and supplies moving like a battering ram. Ortiz saw it coming. Couldn't move. Fear locked her muscles. Vera moved, crossed 15 feet in under 2 seconds, shoved Ortiz sideways with both hands, sending the younger woman sprawling into the next row of seats. The crate slammed into the bulkhead where Ortiz had been sitting, hit hard enough to dent metal. Silence. Even the engine noise seemed quieter. Every conscious person on that plane stared at Vera, at the impossible speed she just displayed. The reaction time that shouldn't exist outside of professional athletes or operators trained to move faster than thought. Webb spoke first. Captain, that was inhuman reaction time. Vera stood slowly, breathing hard, adrenaline. But Brennan had seen something Webb missed. He'd watched Vera's eyes in the half-second before she moved, watched them track the crate's trajectory, calculate its speed and impact point, make the decision to act. She hadn't reacted. She'd predicted, moved before the danger became obvious. That took training, years of it. After the plane leveled out, after Ortiz thanked Vera with shaking hands and everyone settled back into their seats, Brennan pulled Webb aside, spoke low. Run her file, full background check. Something's not right. Webb hesitated. That's insubordination, Sergeant. That's keeping my squad alive. Do it. Webb nodded, pulled out his phone, started digging. What he found over the next 3 hours of flight time would keep him awake for days, but he kept it to himself. Some secrets were too dangerous to share at 30,000 feet. While the C-130 droned toward Iraq, while Vera pretended to sleep and Brennan pretended not to watch her, another conversation was happening 6,000 miles away. Baghdad, an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district where nothing lived except rats and bad memories. The warehouse had thick walls, no windows, a single door with 3 locks. Inside, laptop screens glowed blue in the darkness. Satellite feeds, drone footage, flight tracking data showing a C-130 crossing the Atlantic, still 8 hours from Iraqi airspace. A figure sat in front of the screens, face hidden in shadow, typing, communicating with someone on an encrypted channel. She's on the bird, 6 hours to touchdown. The response came through text. Does she know Jackson is alive? Negative. She thinks Mosul killed him. Good, let's keep her motivated. A second figure stepped into the light, older, military bearing that 63 years hadn't eroded, silver hair cut short, eyes like frozen steel, 4 stars on his collar though the uniform was civilian clothes now. General Howard Blackwood, Medal of Honor recipient, 2 tour Panama, 3 Iraq, 1 Afghanistan, a legend, a hero, and something far worse underneath. Blackwood opened a metal case on the table. Inside, syringes filled with liquid the color of infected wounds, green and viscous, each syringe labeled with careful handwriting. Cross, R sample 47. The formula's stable. The figure at the laptop nodded. 90% mortality rate in test subjects. Hemorrhagic fever, untraceable origin, 12-hour incubation. It's ready. And the buyers? Confirmed, 3 nations, 2 private military contractors, 1 independent party, total payout $500 million. Blackwood closed the case, locked it, smiled without warmth. All from the blood of 1 stubborn geneticist who wouldn't weaponize smallpox 20 years ago. Ironic. What about the daughter? Captain Cross doesn't know her father's alive. Doesn't know I've had him for 21 years. Doesn't know his blood is the key to the most profitable bioweapon since anthrax. Blackwood walked to the window, looked out at Baghdad's skyline, lit by fires and floodlights and the particular orange glow of a city at war. When she arrives, we'll see if she's still the operator I trained, or if 3 years playing medic has made her soft. And if she's soft, then she's useless, and useless assets get liquidated. The figure at the laptop pulled up a new window, facial recognition software running against a database of known operators. The search stopped on a photograph. Military ID photo, 3 years old. The woman in the picture looked like Vera Cross. Same bone structure, same eyes, but the name was different. The rank was different. The entire identity was different. Call sign Revenant, Delta Force. 2014 to 2019. 47 confirmed kills, 200+ lives saved, only operator in unit history to serve dual role as medic and sniper. The figure scrolled through pages of classified information. Operation Reaper's Run, Mosul 2019. Refused to execute prisoners. Team died in subsequent ambush. Her brother Jackson Cross died providing cover for her escape. Officially listed KIA. Unofficially. Unofficially she disappeared, Blackwood finished. Changed her name, got fake medical credentials, re-enlisted as a nobody, thought she could hide. He turned from the window. But you can't hide from me. I trained her, I know how she thinks. And soon she'll know I'm still alive, that her brother's still alive, that everything she believes is a lie. Why not just kill her? Because I need to know if she still has it. The thing that made her special. The ability to pull a trigger without hesitation. To save a life with one hand while taking another with the other hand. If she's still Revenant, she's valuable. If she's just Vera Cross, she's a liability. And the brother. Blackwood's smile grew colder. Jackson's coming for me, has been for 3 years, looking for his father, looking for revenge. He'll arrive right around the time Vera does, and then we'll have a family reunion. With 47 POWs as audience and $500 million on the line, should be educational. The laptop screen switched to a live feed, thermal imaging from a drone over the Atlantic. The heat signature of a C-130 glowing white against black ocean. Inside that plane, a woman who didn't know she was flying toward a trap, who didn't know her brother was alive, who didn't know her father had spent 2 decades in a black site prison having his blood harvested for weapons of mass destruction. The figure at the laptop zoomed in on the thermal image, found the signature that matched Vera's seat position. She sat alone, separate from the others. Even in thermal imaging, isolation had a shape. She's alone. Blackwood nodded. She's always been alone, even when she was part of a team, even when her brother was beside her. Alone is her natural state, it's what makes her dangerous. He checked his watch. 5 hours until landing, alert the convoy. When Captain Cross arrives in Baghdad, I want her en route Irish within 24 hours. I want her tested. I want her broken down to core components. And then I want her to know that I've been waiting. What's the test? The same test I gave her in Mosul, the same one she failed. Blackwood picked up the case of syringes. Choose between saving strangers and saving family, between being a medic and being a weapon. Last time she chose wrong and her team died. Let's see what she chooses this time. The C-130 landed in Kuwait 12 hours later. Refueling stop, 30 minutes on the ground. Vera stepped out into heat that hit like opening an oven door. 118 degrees at midnight. The tarmac shimmered. Somewhere in the distance, oil fires burned, turning the horizon orange and black. An old supply sergeant stood smoking near the fuel trucks. He looked at Vera, looked again. His weathered face creased in concentration. You look familiar. Ever work with the Night Stalkers? The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The most elite helicopter pilots in the military. They flew the missions nobody else would touch. If you'd worked with the Night Stalkers, you weren't regular infantry. You were something special. Common face sergeant. But the old soldier wasn't convinced. He'd seen too many operators pass through Kuwait, knew the way they moved, the way they held themselves, the way their eyes never stopped scanning even when they were standing still. This woman had all the markers, but her uniform said medical. Her rank said regular army. The contradiction bothered him. "If you say so, ma'am." Vera walked away. Behind her, the sergeant pulled out a phone, made a call, spoke to someone who'd want to know that a woman matching Revenant's description had just passed through Kuwait on her way to Baghdad. That call would be recorded, analyzed, added to a file that was growing thicker by the hour. The final leg to Baghdad took 3 hours. Vera didn't sleep, didn't try. Just sat with her medical kit on her lap and her eyes on the cargo door and her thoughts somewhere between memory and anticipation. When the plane finally landed at Camp Victory, the sun was rising over a city that looked like God's rough draft for hell. Blast walls, concrete barriers, burned-out vehicles pushed to the roadside. The airport itself was a fortress. Sandbags and guard towers, and enough firepower to level a small country. 4 MRAPs waited on the tarmac, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, 30 tons each, armor thick enough to stop rocket-propelled grenades, windows made of laminated glass that could take a .50 caliber round. The U.S. military's answer to Iraq's IED problem: expensive, effective, and still vulnerable if you knew where to hit them. Vera rode in Vehicle 3. Brennan took Vehicle 1. Webb and Ortiz were in Vehicle 4. Standard spread. Put your experience in multiple vehicles so one IED doesn't kill all your leadership. The convoy rolled out at 1100 hours. Route: 7 miles from the airport to Camp Victory. Should take 20 minutes. Usually took 40 because you drove slow when every pothole might contain enough explosives to vaporize 30 tons of steel. Vera sat in the back of the MRAP, stared out the gunner's hatch at Baghdad rolling past. The city looked like something that had died badly and nobody had bothered to bury. Blast craters, collapsed buildings, walls pocked with bullet holes, children playing in rubble, women in black robes hanging laundry between destroyed tanks, life continuing in the margins of death. But Vera wasn't looking at the obvious things. She was reading the environment, the way a sniper reads terrain, looking for the details that didn't fit, the patterns that suggested intention. Burned cars along the route, spacing wrong, too perfect. Nobody burned cars 40 meters apart by accident, potholes freshly filled. The dirt was different color than the surrounding road. Someone had placed them recently. Rooftops clean, no brass casings, no evidence of previous firefights. In a war zone, clean rooftops meant either nobody shot from there or somebody cleaned up after. Both options were suspicious. The local guard at a checkpoint saw Vera's face through the MRAP window. His eyes went wide. He muttered something in Arabic. The words carried through the open gunner's hatch. Al-Shaba. The ghost. Ortiz, sitting next to Vera, caught the word. What'd he say? Vera kept her face neutral. I don't speak Arabic. But her Arabic was fluent. 4 dialects. Learned during 2 years embedded with Iraqi special forces before Mosul, before everything went wrong. The guard's recognition meant something. Meant someone had talked. Meant her face was known here. Meant the past she'd buried wasn't buried deep enough. Camp Victory sprawled like a concrete cancer. Blast walls arranged in maze patterns. Guard towers every 100 meters. The Tactical Operations Center sat in the middle, a 2-story building that looked like it had been designed by someone who expected to be bombed and wanted to survive the experience. Major Hensley ran the briefing, 40 years old, by the book. Prior enlisted, worked his way up, believed in following orders and keeping casualties low and going home alive. He stood at a map table with satellite imagery spread across it. "Welcome to paradise. 3 rules: don't leave base alone, don't trust locals, don't die." He pointed to the map. "We run convoy security between the Green Zone and Baghdad International. Milk Run should be easy." Vera spoke up, "Should be." Hensley looked at her. "IED attacks are down 60% this month. Either we're winning or they're planning something big." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew which option was more likely. In Iraq, quiet didn't mean peace. It meant patience. The enemy was waiting, building a better bomb, planning a bigger attack. Quiet was the sound of something horrible getting ready to happen. Hensley's phone buzzed. He read the message. His face went pale. Professional soldier, 20 years in, and whatever that message said made him look like he'd seen a ghost. "Captain Cross, Captain Reed wants to see you now." Brennan frowned. "Who's Captain Reed?" "OGA. Other governmental agency. Military speak for CIA." Everyone in the room understood what that meant. When the CIA wanted to talk to you, it was never good news. Vera stood, felt every eye in the room follow her out, walked across Camp Victory to a building that didn't exist on official maps. The SCIF, Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, the place where secrets lived. Concrete walls 3 feet thick, no windows, a single door with a cipher lock and a guard who checked her ID 3 times before letting her through. Inside, the air was cold, climate-controlled to protect the electronics. Monitors covered one wall. Encryption equipment filled racks. And sitting at a desk in the center of it all, a woman with short dark hair and eyes like a predator that had learned to smile. Captain Melissa Reed, 35, CIA Special Activities Center. The people who did the things that never made the news, the operations that got disavowed, the missions that officially didn't happen. Reed didn't stand, didn't offer to shake hands, just looked at Vera with an expression that mixed curiosity and calculation. "Captain Cross, or should I say Revenant?" Vera's hand moved toward her sidearm. Muscle memory, threat response, but she wasn't armed. They'd made her leave her weapon outside the SCIF. She forced her hand back to her side. "I don't know what you're talking about." Reed smiled, not friendly. "Delta Force 2014 to 2019, call sign Revenant, medic sniper hybrid, 47 confirmed kills, 200+ lives saved. Operation Reaper's Run, Mosul 2019. You refused to execute POWs. Your commanding officer reported you. Your team died in the exfil ambush. Officially listed KIA, except you survived." The words hit like bullets, each one finding a gap in Vera's armor. She'd spent 3 years building a new identity, 3 years hiding, 3 years pretending to be someone ordinary, and this woman had torn it all away in 30 seconds. Reed slid a folder across the desk. "You didn't just survive. You disappeared for 3 years, got fake medical degree credentials from Johns Hopkins, re-enlisted as regular Army, changed your name, changed your life. Impressive, but not impressive enough." Vera's throat went dry. "What do you want?" "Your brother." The room tilted. Vera gripped the edge of the desk to stay upright. "Jackson died in Mosul." "Did he?" Reed pulled a photograph from the folder. Recent, grainy, surveillance photo taken from long distance. A man in tactical gear, face half covered by a shemagh, but the scar on his neck was visible. The same scar Jackson had gotten in Afghanistan when shrapnel from an IED had missed his carotid artery by millimeters. Vera's hands shook. For the first time in 3 years, emotion cracked through her control. "That's not possible." "He's alive, and he's here, in Iraq, hunting someone." Reed pulled out another photo. Older, military portrait, 4 stars on the collar, a face Vera would recognize anywhere. The face that haunted every nightmare. General Howard Blackwood, your former commanding officer. The man who ordered you to execute prisoners. The man who reported you when you refused. The man who your brother blames for what happened in Mosul. Vera couldn't breathe. Blackwood alive here. I thought he was dead. That's what he wanted you to think. He retired, built a private military company. Blackwood Defense Solutions operates throughout the Middle East. Officially, they're contractors doing security work. Unofficially, Reed pulled up files on the computer, financial records, weapons manifests, satellite photos of compounds in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. We think he's dealing arms to insurgents, and worse. Why tell me? Because your brother left a message for you. Reed played an audio file. The voice that came through the speakers was older, rougher, but unmistakably Jackson's. 3 years of believing he was dead, and now his voice filled the room like a ghost given permission to speak. Vera, if you're hearing this, I'm still alive, and so is Dad. Blackwood has him. I'm getting him back. Don't trust anyone. The recording ended. The silence that followed felt like falling. Vera's voice came out barely above a whisper. Dad died in Desert Storm, 2003. That's what Blackwood told you. Reed pulled up another file, medical records, prison transfer documents, a photograph that made Vera's knees buckle. Richard Cross, 59 years old, white hair, thin, alive. Your father's alive, POW for 21 years. Blackwood's been using him. For what? Reed's expression hardened. Bioweapon research. Your father's a geneticist, specialized in hemorrhagic fevers. Blackwood captured him in 2003, forced him to develop a weaponized variant of Ebola, untraceable, 90% mortality rate, and he's selling it. The room spun. Vera sat down before she fell down. Where is he? We don't know, but Jackson does. And he's going to hit Blackwood's convoy in 72 hours. Alone. Against 50 of Blackwood's operators. He's going to die unless you help. Vera looked up, met Reed's eyes. What do you need me to do? Tomorrow's convoy, route Irish. When the ambush happens, and it will happen, keep your team alive. Then find Jackson before Blackwood does. We'll provide support. But you're the only one who can get close to your brother. The only one he'll trust. Why route Irish? Because Blackwood wants to see you in action. Wants to test if you're still the operator he trained. The convoy's a setup, but it's also an opportunity. Prove you're still Revenant and Blackwood will make contact. Give you a chance to get close. Vera stood. Every instinct screamed this was wrong. A trap within a trap, but the photograph of her father wouldn't let her walk away. 21 years in a black site prison. 21 years she'd thought he was dead. If there was even a chance he was alive, she had to take it. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not Revenant anymore? Reed's smile was cold as winter. Then your father dies, your brother dies, and $500 million worth of bioweapon gets sold to the highest bidder. So I suggest you remember who you used to be, because who you are now isn't going to be enough. Vera left the SCIF, walked back across Camp Victory with the weight of 3 years crashing down on her shoulders. She tried to bury Revenant, tried to become someone who saved lives instead of taking them, someone who healed instead of hurt. But the past had teeth, and it had just bitten down hard enough to draw blood. That night, while the rest of the unit slept, Vera sat in the darkness of the barracks and made a decision. Tomorrow, en route Irish, when the ambush came, she would have to choose. Between hiding and fighting. Between Vera Cross the medic and Revenant the operator. Between the person she wanted to be and the person she needed to be. She pulled the card from her pocket, the one Duran had given her. Firebase Echo, Grid 3847, safe, insurance he'd called it, a place to run when things went wrong. But Vera wasn't running. Not anymore. She was done hiding, done pretending. Tomorrow, when the bullets started flying, she'd show them all who she really was. And God help anyone who got in her way. Because Revenant wasn't dead. She'd just been sleeping. And now it was time to wake up. Dawn broke over Camp Victory like a wound opening. Red sky bleeding into orange, the kind of sunrise that old soldiers knew meant bad weather coming, or bad luck. In Iraq, the two were often the same thing. Vera Cross stood in the armory at 500 hours, alone except for the fluorescent lights humming overhead and the smell of gun oil thick enough to taste. Her medical bag lay open on the steel table, tourniquets arranged in perfect rows, Israeli bandages stacked by size, chest seals in waterproof packets, morphine syrettes lined up like soldiers waiting for orders. She'd packed and repacked 3 times already. Ritual, obsession, the only way to keep her hands from shaking. But this morning there was something else on the table, something that hadn't been there yesterday. Her M4 carbine, cleaned, oiled, a custom Nightforce ATACR optic mounted on the rail. The scope alone cost $3,000. Military issue didn't come with glass that good. This was personal equipment. The kind Delta Force operators bought with their own money when standard gear wasn't precise enough. She ran her fingers over the scope. Memory flooded back. Jackson teaching her long-range shooting in the mountains of Afghanistan, his voice patient as he explained windage and elevation. The way he'd smiled when she'd made her first kill shot at 800 meters. Proud, like a brother should be. The door opened. Specialist Webb walked in, medical kit over his shoulder, Harvard education and anxiety disorder packed somewhere underneath. He stopped when he saw the rifle, saw the scope. His eyes went from the weapon to Vera's face and back again. That's not standard issue. No. Where'd a medic get a scope like that? Vera performed a functions check, muscle memory taking over, chamber, magazine, safety, trigger press. The movements were smooth as water. Gift. From who? Someone who taught me to shoot. Webb set down his kit, studied her with the analytical gaze of someone trained to diagnose problems. You're different this morning. How so? Your hands aren't shaking. Vera looked down. He was right. For the first time since Fort Bragg, her hands were steady, rock steady, surgeon steady, the kind of steady that came from certainty, from knowing exactly what was about to happen and being ready for it. I took my medication. Bullshit. Webb stepped closer, kept his voice low. I've been watching you. The tremors aren't physical. They're psychological, and psychological tremors don't stop because you decided they should. They stop when you stop being afraid. Vera met his eyes. Maybe I'm not afraid anymore. Or maybe you've accepted what's coming. Before she could answer, the door banged open. Sergeant Brennan filled the frame. 6'3" of muscle and scar tissue and suspicion that had been building for days. He looked at Vera, at the rifle, at the scope that cost more than most soldiers made in a month. His jaw tightened. We need to talk now. Webb took the hint, grabbed his kit, left without a word. The door closed behind him with a sound like a cell locking. Brennan didn't move from his position, didn't come closer, just stood there radiating the kind of controlled anger that came from putting pieces together and not liking the picture they made. I called in a favor, had a buddy at JSOC run your name. Vera continued prepping her rifle, checking the optics 0, and nothing. Vera Cross, medical officer, clean record, too clean, no social media footprint, no digital history before 2020, like you were born fully formed 4 years ago. Some of us value privacy. Some of us have something to hide. Brennan moved closer, close enough that Vera could see the veins standing out on his neck. I've been doing this 18 years. I know operators when I see them. You move like Delta, pack like Delta, and that scope, he pointed at the rifle. That's Delta money, Delta equipment, so I'm going to ask you one more time. Who the fuck are you really? The question hung in the air between them. Vera could lie, could maintain the fiction a little longer, but Route Irish was 6 hours away. The ambush was coming. These men deserved to know who they were rolling out with, what she was, what she'd been. I'm the person who's going to keep you alive today. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. She slung the rifle across her back, picked up her medical bag. But Brennan, when the shooting starts, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? He stared at her. Combat veteran, 2 Purple Hearts. 18 years of seeing through bullshit and staying alive because of it. Everything in his training said not to trust her, but something in her eyes, some fundamental shift from yesterday to today, told him she was telling a different kind of truth. One condition: when the shit hits, and it will, you don't freeze, you don't hide, you fight. I'll do what I'm trained to do. That's what I'm afraid of. He left. Vera stood alone in the armory with her rifle and her secrets, and the certain knowledge that in 6 hours everything would change. She pulled out her phone, looked at the last message, the one from the unknown number that had started all of this. Route Irish, 1100 hours, he's waiting. She deleted it, put the phone away, walked out into the Baghdad morning where 40 soldiers were gearing up for a convoy that half of them wouldn't survive. The briefing room smelled like coffee and fear. Major Hensley stood at the front with a map projected on the wall. Route Irish highlighted in red. 7 miles of highway that had killed more Americans than any other road in Iraq. The most dangerous commute in the world. Standard convoy procedures: 4 vehicles. Vehicle 1, Sergeant Brennan, 4 shooters. Vehicle 2, Lieutenant Mason, engineer support. Vehicle 3, Captain Cross, medical. Vehicle 4, Specialist Webb, Corporal Ortiz, rear security. Hensley clicked through satellite photos. The highway looked like a scar across Baghdad's face. Blast walls, concrete barriers, burned vehicles pushed to the sides, overpasses that provided perfect ambush positions. Intel reports minimal enemy activity this sector. IED count down 60% this month. Should be a clean run. Vera spoke from the back. Should be. Hensley looked at her. You have concerns, Captain. The quiet bothers me. In my experience, quiet means patience. They're waiting for something worth the wait. And what would that be? Us. The room went silent. Soldiers exchanged glances. Hensley's expression hardened. Do you have specific intelligence suggesting an attack? No, sir, just instinct. Instinct doesn't change mission parameters. Hensley closed his presentation. We roll at 1100 hours. Dismissed. The soldiers filed out. Vera stayed behind, waited until the room emptied. Then she approached Hensley's desk. The major was packing his briefing materials, not looking at her. Permission to speak freely, sir. Denied. Sir, I think we should request air support. Apache coverage, just in case. Now Hensley looked up. Based on your instinct. Based on pattern recognition, the spacing of those burned vehicles, the fresh fill in the potholes, the clean rooftops, someone's preparing that route, making it look safe. That's tradecraft, professional work. Hensley studied her. How does a medical officer know about ambush tradecraft? Vera didn't answer, couldn't. The lie she'd built was already cracking. One more question and it would shatter completely. Hensley sighed. Request denied. We don't have Apache assets to spare on instinct. You're a good medic, Captain. Stick to medicine. Leave tactics to the infantry. Vera saluted. Left. Behind her, Hensley pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke to someone who'd been waiting to hear from him. Someone who'd paid him very well to make sure Captain Vera Cross got on that convoy without air support, without backup, without anything that might interfere with what was coming. At 10:30 hours, the 4 MRAPs lined up at the gate, 30 tons of armor each, V-shaped hulls designed to deflect blast waves, windows thick enough to stop armor-piercing rounds. The American military's answer to asymmetric warfare, expensive, sophisticated, and still vulnerable if you knew where to hit them. Vera climbed into Vehicle 3. The crew chief, a specialist named Martinez, gave her a strange look. "Captain, you're wearing your rifle." "Yes." "Medics usually don't carry in the vehicle. Store them in the rack." "I'm not most medics." Martinez didn't argue. He'd heard the rumors, the incident at the range, the classroom breakdown, the impossible save on the C-130. This captain was different, maybe crazy, maybe dangerous, maybe both. Either way, he was staying out of her way. Brennan's voice crackled over the radio from Vehicle 1. "All elements, comms check." The convoy responded in sequence. Vehicle 2, Vehicle 3, Vehicle 4, all systems green, all weapons hot, all soldiers as ready as they'd ever be for what was waiting 7 miles down the road. "Move out." The MRAPs rolled through the gate at 1100 hours exactly. The timing was precise, deliberate. Someone had planned this down to the minute. Somewhere in Baghdad, General Howard Blackwood checked his watch and smiled. The first 3 miles were routine, traffic sparse, civilians staying indoors. The convoy moved at 30 miles per hour, slow enough to spot threats, fast enough to be a difficult target, standard operating procedure. By the book, exactly how they'd trained it. Vera sat in the back of Vehicle 3 staring out the gunner's hatch, watching Baghdad scroll past, reading the city like a language only she could speak. The burned cars were there, exactly where the satellite photos showed them, 40 meters apart, too perfect. The potholes were there too, fresh fill, different color dirt, recently placed. But there was something else, something the photos hadn't shown. The rooftops weren't empty. She could see shadows, movement, people up there watching, not civilians. The posture was wrong, too alert, too focused. These were spotters, forward observers, calling in the convoy's position to someone waiting ahead. She keyed her radio. "All vehicles, this is Cross. I'm seeing rooftop activity. Multiple observers. This doesn't feel right." Hensley's voice came back. "Noted, Captain. Maintain speed." "Sir, recommend we abort. Take alternate route." "Negative, we're on schedule. Continue mission." Vera looked at Martinez. The specialist was young, 22 maybe. This was his second deployment. He'd seen enough combat to know fear but not enough to trust his instincts over orders. "The captain's right," Martinez said quietly. "This is wrong." "I know. So what do we do?" Vera checked her rifle, made sure the magazine was seated. "We get ready." They approached Checkpoint 4, the underpass, a concrete bridge that created the perfect choke point, the place where every convoy slowed down, where visibility dropped, where an ambush could cut off escape routes in both directions. Brennan's voice, approaching Checkpoint 4, all vehicles maintain interval. The convoy slowed, 30 miles per hour to 20, to 15. The underpass loomed ahead, dark, tight. Vera's hands tightened on her rifle, every instinct screaming. Her heart rate climbed, but her hands stayed steady, because she wasn't afraid, she was ready. And then she saw it, the detail that didn't fit. A civilian truck jackknifed across the road, blocking the exit from the underpass. The truck was old, Soviet-era, but the jackknife was too perfect, too precise. Nobody accidentally blocked a road that completely. "All vehicles halt," Hensley's voice. "We've got a roadblock." The convoy stopped, 100 meters from the underpass, right where someone wanted them, right in the kill zone. Vera keyed her radio. "This is Cross, it's a funnel, they want us stopped here. We need to back out, now." "Captain, maintain radio discipline." "Sir, this is a setup, we need to." The world exploded. Not the underpass, not ahead of them, behind them. An IED detonated 50 meters to their rear. The blast wave shook the MRAP. Shrapnel hammered the armor like hail, but the vehicle held. The V-shaped hull did its job, deflected the energy, saved lives. But the road behind them was gone. Crater 6 feet deep, 20 feet across, no way back. Brennan's voice tight with adrenaline. "Contact rear, IED, Vehicle 4, report status." Webb's voice shaking. "We're okay, vehicle's intact, road's gone." Vera spoke into the radio. Her voice was calm, too calm, the voice of someone who'd been here before. "They boxed us in, front blocked, rear destroyed, we're exactly where they want us." 3 seconds of silence, then the world caught fire. Machine gun fire erupted from 3 buildings simultaneously. PKM heavy machine guns, 7.62 rounds that could punch through engine blocks, the distinctive sound of Soviet-era weapons that had killed Americans for 50 years, muzzle flashes from second-story windows, third floor, rooftops. The MRAP's armor held, rounds sparked off steel, but the gunfire wasn't aimed at the vehicles. It was aimed at the tires, precise, professional, 12 shots, 4 tires destroyed. The convoy wasn't just stopped, it was immobilized. "Brennan, return fire. All vehicles engage." But Vera didn't fire. She was counting muzzle flashes, calculating positions, 12 shooters, 4 PKM machine guns at different elevations, 8 AK-47s providing suppressing fire, rooftop positions at 200 meters, 340 meters, 410 meters, professional spacing, military training. This wasn't insurgents. This was something else. "Brennan, hold fire." "What?" "They're 400 meters out. Effective range for M4 is 300. You're wasting ammunition. That's what they want." "Then what do we do?" Vera opened the MRAP's door, stepped out into the kill zone. Martinez grabbed her arm. "Captain, are you insane?" "Probably." She shook him off, moved to the rear of the vehicle, found cover behind the engine block. The shooting continued, but none of it was aimed at her. Not yet. They were watching, waiting to see what she'd do. She acquired the M240 machine gun from the vehicle's mount. 7.62 mm, longer range than the M4, effective out to 800 meters in the right hands, and Vera's hands were very right. She shouldered the weapon, found the first target through the optic, PKM gunner on a rooftop, 400 meters, slight crosswind from the east. She adjusted for elevation, for wind, for the Earth's rotation, because at this distance, even that mattered. Single burst, 6 rounds, not at the gunner, at the concrete ledge he was hiding behind. The rounds impacted exactly where she'd aimed them. Concrete chips exploded backward, into the gunner's face. He dropped, not dead, just blinded, suppressed, out of the fight. Brennan's voice over the radio. "Cross, what the hell are you doing?" "Winning." Second target, 340 meters. Window position. She aimed at the window frame. 2 inches to the left of the shooter's barrel, fired. The rounds shredded the frame, sent splinters and dust into the shooter's face. He jerked back, stopped shooting. Third target, 200 meters, PKM on a rooftop. She could have taken the head shot. Easy, but she aimed at the weapon itself, at the ammunition belt feeding into the gun. 3 rounds, perfect placement. The belt exploded. The PKM jammed. The gunner dove for cover. 12 shots fired. 0 kills. 100% suppression. The incoming fire slackened. Stopped. The ambush faltered because the ambushers suddenly realized they weren't fighting a medical convoy. They were fighting someone who could shoot back with precision that made their training look amateur. Brennan climbed out of Vehicle 1, stared at Vera across 30 meters of kill zone. What the fuck was that? Suppressing fire. That was the most precise shooting I've ever seen, and you didn't kill anyone. I'm a medic, I don't kill. You're a goddamn liar is what you are. Before Vera could respond, the radio crackled. Different frequency. One they shouldn't have access to, encrypted channel. But someone had broken the encryption, or someone had given them the key. The voice that came through was American, cultured. The accent of someone educated at good schools and raised with money. Captain Cross, I must say the ricochets were impressive, but you're holding back. Vera keyed her radio. Blackwood. In the flesh. Well, not quite. I'm 5 kilometers away, but my scope is on you. A red laser dot appeared on Vera's chest, right over her heart. Perfect shot. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked up at the surrounding buildings, searching for the source. You're not going to shoot. Correct, because I need to see if you're still my weapon, or if you've become soft. I'm not your anything. We'll see. There was amusement in Blackwood's voice, the sound of a man playing a game he'd already won. In 60 seconds, I'm sending 12 of my men, former Delta, former Rangers, the best private military contractors money can buy. Kill them all and I'll believe you've still got it. Spare them and I'll know you're useless to me. Vera's blood went cold. This isn't an insurgent attack. No, it's an audition. Clock's ticking, Captain. Show me what you are. The radio went dead. Vera looked at Brennan, at Webb climbing out of Vehicle 4, at Ortiz staring at her with wide eyes. They'd all heard. They all understood now. This wasn't about convoy security. This was about her, about testing her, about forcing her to choose between the person she'd been and the person she'd tried to become. Brennan moved to her position, kept his voice low. What's he talking about? What audition? He wants to see if I'm still a killer. Are you? Vera didn't answer, because she didn't know. 3 years playing medic, 3 years saving lives, 3 years trying to atone for the 47 people she'd killed before Mosul. But Blackwood didn't care about atonement. He cared about weapons, and he wanted to know if his favorite weapon was still sharp. Brennan, get everyone in cover, now. What are you going to do? My job. 12 men emerged from the buildings. They moved like operators, fire team formations, covering each other's movement, professional spacing, U.S. military gear, body armor, night vision mounts on their helmets even though it was noon. These weren't insurgents. These were Americans, contractors, mercenaries, men who'd served their country and then decided to keep serving for money instead of principle. They advanced at 200 meters, firing in controlled bursts, suppressing, moving, professionals executing a textbook assault. Vera calculated. She could drop all 12 in 20 seconds if she shot to kill. Center mass, head shots, the kind of shooting that had earned her the call sign Revenant. But if she did that, Blackwood would know she was still the weapon he'd forged, still the killer he'd created. If she didn't, her team would die. The oldest choice in war, kill or be killed. Save strangers or save yourself. Be the weapon or be the victim. She thought about Jackson, about her brother who was alive somewhere hunting this same man, about her father, prisoner for 21 years, about the bioweapon in Blackwood's hands, about $500 million and the people who would die when that weapon got sold. She thought about Brennan, about Webb, about Ortiz and Martinez and 40 soldiers who trusted her to keep them safe. She made her choice. Webb, how fast can you apply a tourniquet? Webb crouched behind vehicle 4. On myself, 20 seconds. Make it 15. She switched the M240 to semi-automatic, precision mode, slower rate of fire but perfect shot placement. The contractors were at 150 meters, still advancing. She acquired the first target through her optic, aimed low, fired. The round took him in the thigh. Femoral artery missed by 2 inches, deliberate. He went down screaming, not dead, not dying, just out of the fight. Second target, weapon in hands, she shot the rifle. The round impacted the receiver, destroyed the gun. The contractor dropped it, dove for cover, alive, unarmed, neutralized. Third target, she aimed at his load-bearing vest, at the magazine pouches. Fired 3 rounds rapid succession, destroyed his ammunition. He looked down at his shredded gear, understood, retreated. 12 contractors, 23 seconds, 12 shots fired, 4 wounded but alive, 5 weapons destroyed, 3 sets of gear rendered useless, 0 kills, 100% suppression. The contractors retreated, dragging their wounded, leaving their disabled weapons, professional enough to know when they were outmatched. The kill zone went quiet. Vera lowered her rifle. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was steady. She just engaged 12 hostile combatants and hadn't killed a single one. The precision required to do that was harder than killing, required more skill, more control, more of everything. The radio crackled again, Blackwood's voice, but the amusement was gone, replaced by something harder, colder. Fascinating, you've developed a conscience. How disappointing. Vera keyed the radio. Where's my father? Closer than you think, and farther than you'll ever reach. If you hurt him. You'll what? You just proved you can't pull the trigger anymore. You're broken, Captain, defective, and defective weapons get discarded. The transmission ended, this time permanently. No more games, no more tests, just silence and the sound of Baghdad burning in the distance. Brennan walked over, looked at Vera with an expression somewhere between awe and horror. 12 shots, 12 hits, no kills. I told you, I'm a medic. No, you're something I've never seen before. Someone who can kill but chooses not to. That's not medicine, that's philosophy, and philosophy doesn't win wars. Maybe we're fighting the wrong wars. Before Brennan could respond, the sound of rotors filled the air. Heavy, close, coming in fast. Everyone looked up. 3 Black Hawk helicopters descending. No military markings. No identifying numbers. Just black metal and tinted windows and door guns pointed down at the convoy. The lead bird touched down. Dust and prop wash blasted across the road. The side door opened. Men poured out. Not contractors this time. These men wore DCUs, desert camouflage uniforms, American flag patches, but something was wrong. The movements were too aggressive, the weapons too ready. Colonel Frank Durant stepped out last, 52 years old, career soldier, Gulf War veteran son, the man who'd warned Vera about this mission, the man who'd given her the card with Firebase Echo's coordinates. He walked toward the convoy with measured steps. His sidearm was holstered, but his hand was on it. Vera's instincts screamed. Something was wrong, very wrong. Durant stopped 10 meters from Vehicle 3. "Captain Vera Cross, you're under arrest." The words hit like bullets. Everyone froze. Brennan turned to stare at Vera. Webb's mouth fell open. Ortiz started to raise her rifle but didn't know who to point it at. "Sir, on what charges?" "Treason, espionage, 18 counts of murder." Brennan stepped forward. "Colonel, with all due respect, that's insane. Captain Cross just saved our convoy." Durant's expression never changed. "Your captain is Revenant, CIA's most prolific assassin. She killed a peace negotiator and his children in Syria 3 years ago. She's been living under a false identity ever since." The revelation detonated across the convoy like a grenade. Soldiers looked at each other, at Vera, trying to reconcile the scared medic from Fort Bragg with the woman who just engaged 12 contractors and hit every shot. Vera felt the walls closing in, everything she'd built for 3 years collapsing in real time. That's a lie. The negotiator survived, and there were no children. "Is that what Blackwood told you?" Durant pulled out a tablet, showed her a video, grainy, security footage, a building in Syria, explosions, bodies, small bodies, children's bodies. The timestamp matched Operation Reaper's Run. The location matched the compound where Vera had refused to fire. But she hadn't been there for this. This had happened after her team evacuated, after Jackson died covering her escape, after she'd been listed KIA and disappeared into the wind. "This is fake." "Is it? Or is this what really happened after you ran, after your conscience prevented you from completing the mission?" Vera's mind raced, trying to separate truth from manipulation. Blackwood was a liar, a weapons dealer, a man who'd kept her father prisoner for 21 years, but Durant had saved her life in Mosul, had protected her, had given her the safe house coordinates. Unless that was part of the plan too, unless he was part of it. Durant's men surrounded the convoy. 8 operators, weapons trained on the American soldiers who seconds ago had been allies. Civil war in miniature. American guns pointed at American uniforms. "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Captain. You're coming with us." Vera looked at her team, at Brennan's face cycling through shock and betrayal and anger, at Webb trying to process what he was hearing, at Ortiz gripping her rifle like it was the only real thing in a world gone insane. She could fight, could probably take down 3 or 4 of Durant's men before they got her, but that would start a firefight between Americans, would get her people killed, would prove she was exactly what Durant claimed she was. Or she could surrender, trust that somewhere in the system someone would sort truth from lies, that justice still existed. She'd spent 3 years believing in second chances, in redemption, in the idea that people could change. Time to see if the world believed it too. Vera set down her rifle, raised her hands. "I'll come peacefully." Durant nodded to his men. 2 of them moved in, zip-tied her wrists behind her back, searched her, found her sidearm, her knife. The card Durant had given her with Firebase Echo's location, that card they left, a message, a reminder. The trap had layers. They pushed her toward the Blackhawk. Brennan tried to follow. Durant's men blocked him. "She's our medic. You can't just take her." Durant looked at Brennan with something that might have been pity. "She was never your medic, Sergeant. She was a weapon pretending to heal, and now she's going where all broken weapons go." They loaded Vera into the helicopter, strapped her into a seat. She looked out the window, saw her team standing in the desert, saw the confusion and anger and betrayal on their faces, saw the careful lie she'd built dissolving in the heat. The Blackhawk lifted off. Baghdad fell away beneath them. The convoy got smaller. The burned vehicles, the blast crater, the evidence of an ambush that wasn't about killing, just about revealing. Durant sat across from Vera, studied her with calculating eyes. "I know what you're thinking, that I betrayed you, that this is Blackwood's doing. Isn't it? I'm working for my country. You're the one who went rogue. I refused an illegal order. There's a difference." Durant leaned forward. The order was legal. The target was verified. Dr. Khalid Ansari was funding Hezbollah. You let him live out of some misplaced sense of morality. And because of that, 63 Americans died. Vera's blood went cold. "That's not true." "Isn't it? 2 months after Mosul, Ansari provided intelligence that led to an ambush in Kandahar. 63 dead. Their blood is on your hands, Captain, not from who you killed, from who you saved." The words were designed to cut, to make her doubt, to weaponize her conscience against her. Vera had spent 3 years believing she'd made the right choice, that saving Ansari had been worth the cost. But if Durant was telling the truth, if those 63 deaths were real, then maybe Blackwood had been right. Maybe mercy was weakness. Maybe the only way to win wars was to stop caring about who died in them. The helicopter banked hard. Alarm screamed. The pilot's voice cut through. "Sam lock, Sam lock." Surface-to-air missile. Locked on. Incoming. Vera saw it through the window. Contrail like a finger pointing at God. The missile streaked toward them. The pilot dumped flares. Chaff. Evasive maneuvers. The Black Hawk twisted like a dying bird. The first missile missed, decoyed by countermeasures. But there was a second one. Always a second one. It hit the tail rotor. The explosion was small, surgical, designed to disable, not destroy. The helicopter spun, lost altitude, falling but not crashing. Whoever had fired that missile knew exactly what they were doing. The pilot fought for control, brace for impact. They hit the Tigris River at 60 miles per hour. The helicopter's fuselage was designed to float for 30 seconds, enough time to evacuate if you moved fast. The impact drove Vera against her restraints. Her vision went white. Pain exploded through her shoulder, but she stayed conscious, forced herself to breathe, to think, to act. Water flooded the cabin, cold, fast. The river was swollen with spring runoff. The current was strong. The helicopter was already tilting, sinking. Durant was unconscious, head bleeding from where he'd hit the bulkhead. 2 of his operators were moving, trying to get out. The others weren't moving at all. Vera's hands were still zip-tied. She brought them forward under her feet, in front of her body. Then she dislocated her left thumb. The pain was white-hot and immediate, but the zip tie slipped over her hand. She was free. First rule of being a medic: you can't help anyone if you're dead. She pulled herself toward the door, water to her waist now, to her chest. The helicopter rolled, going under. But Durant was still unconscious, still bleeding, still a bastard who'd arrested her and lied about Ansari and probably worked for Blackwood. But he was also a soldier, an American. And Vera Cross, no matter what else she was, no matter how many names she'd used or lives she'd taken, was still a medic. She grabbed Durant's body armor, dragged him toward the door. The helicopter was fully submerged now, dark, cold, the current trying to tear them both away. She kicked through the door, pulled Durant with her, swam for the surface with one hand while holding his head above water with the other. They broke surface. Vera gasped, looked around. They were in the middle of the Tigris. The banks were 200 meters away. The current was pulling them downstream. The helicopter sank behind them, taking Durant's men to the bottom. Vera could let go, let the river take Durant, swim for shore alone. He'd die and she'd be free, and nobody would know she'd had the chance to save him. But that wasn't who she was, wasn't who she'd chosen to be. She swam, one-armed side stroke, pulling Durant with her, fighting the current, fighting exhaustion, fighting the part of her brain that screamed to let go and save herself. She made it to shore, dragged Durant onto the riverbank, checked his breathing, weak but there, checked his pulse, thready but steady. She rolled him on his side, water poured from his mouth. He coughed, started breathing on his own. Vera collapsed next to him, chest heaving, shoulder on fire from the dislocated thumb she jammed back into place underwater. They lay there in the mud, two soldiers on different sides of a war that wasn't about countries anymore, just about right and wrong and all the gray space in between. Durant's eyes opened. He looked at her, understanding slowly returning. "You saved me. I'm a medic, it's what I do. Even after I arrested you, even after everything I said. Especially then." Durant coughed again, sat up slowly, looked at the river where his helicopter had gone down, where his men were drowning. His hand went to his sidearm. It was still there, holstered, loaded. Vera was right next to him, unarmed, exhausted, easy target. He pulled the gun. Vera didn't move, just watched him, waiting to see what he'd choose. Durant looked at the gun, at Vera, at the river. He made a decision, drew his radio from his vest. It was waterproof, still working. He keyed it. "Any station, this is Colonel Durant. Helicopter down. Tigris River, grid 4738. Multiple casualties." The response came immediately. "Colonel, confirm your status." Durant looked at Vera. Long moment. Then he cut his own tracker, the electronic beacon that would lead searchers to him. He crushed it under his boot. Into the radio. "Negative survivors. Repeat all KIA." He turned off the radio, looked at Vera. "You have 24 hours. Find your brother. Find the truth. If you're lying, if Blackwood's right about you, I'll kill you myself." Vera stared at him. "Why?" "Because you saved my life when you could have let me die. And because 18 years in this uniform taught me to recognize honor when I see it, even in unlikely places." He stood, pulled off his wet DCUs. Underneath he wore civilian clothes, prepared for this. He'd known the helicopter would go down, known he'd have to disappear. This was all part of someone's plan, but whose? "There's a safe house, 2 kilometers north. I'll take you there, you can gear up, but after that you're on your own." They walked, through Baghdad's outskirts, through neighborhoods that looked like the apocalypse had come and gone and left its trash behind. Burned buildings, bullet-scarred walls, children playing in rubble like it was normal, like war was just whether you learned to live with. Vera's mind raced, trying to process everything. The ambush, the arrest, the crash, Durant's betrayal that maybe wasn't betrayal. The layers of deception wrapped around layers of truth wrapped around more deception. Who fired the missile? Durant didn't answer right away, just kept walking. Finally, same person who wants you alive, who needs you to find Jackson, who's been protecting you since Mosul. Who? You'll find out soon enough. The safe house was a concrete box in a residential district, unremarkable, forgettable, the kind of place spies used when they needed to disappear. Durant had keys. He unlocked 3 different locks. They went inside. The interior was sparse. Weapons rack, communications equipment, medical supplies, and on the table a laptop already powered on, already logged into something. Durant gestured, "Check the files." Vera sat, opened the directory, found a folder labeled Operation Reaper's Run. Inside, classified documents she'd never been cleared to see, mission briefs, intelligence assessments, after-action reports. She read, the world shifted. Everything she'd believed for 3 years started crumbling. The target hadn't been Dr. Ansari. The target had been what Ansari knew. He discovered that Blackwood was running a black site prison, holding POWs from 3 different wars, using them for medical experiments. Ansari was going to expose it, was going to bring it to international authorities. The mission was never about terrorism. It was about silence, about making sure Ansari never talked. And when Vera refused to shoot through civilians to get to him, when her conscience interfered, the mission changed. They let Ansari escape, let him think he'd won. Then they bombed the compound, killed everyone who'd been there, staged it to look like Vera had lost control, had caused collateral damage, created a monster they could blame when the truth eventually came out. But there was more. A file labeled Cross, our prisoner 6274. Richard Cross, geneticist, captured 2003, held at Site Judas, a black site prison 60 kilometers from Baghdad, 21 years, forced to develop bioweapons, his blood harvested, his knowledge weaponized. And next to that file, Cross J status, active. Jackson wasn't just alive. He was operational, had been for 3 years, working alone, hunting Blackwood, getting close, and in 48 hours he was going to hit Site Judas, going to try to free their father, going to die in the attempt unless someone stopped him. Vera looked up at Durant. You've known this whole time. I've suspected, couldn't prove it until today. The arrest, the crash, that was all theater. Blackwood has assets everywhere, eyes everywhere. The only way to keep you alive was to make him think I'd captured you, make him think you were out of play, give you a chance to move without being watched. And your men, the ones who drowned in that helicopter. Durant's face hardened. Volunteers, they knew the risks, knew what was at stake. He paused. And they weren't my men. They were Blackwood's, planted in my command. When that missile hit, it cleaned house. The pieces clicked into place. The ambush on Route Irish wasn't about testing Vera. It was about forcing her to reveal herself, to prove she was still dangerous, still valuable. The arrest wasn't about justice. It was about extraction, about getting her away from Blackwood's eyes so she could operate freely. And Durant wasn't a traitor, he was a handler. CIA had been all along. Who do you work for? Same person who sent Captain Reed. Same person who's been tracking Blackwood for 5 years. We call her Shepard. The name from the card, Firebase Echo, grid coordinates for a safe place. It was all connected. Vera stood. I need to get to Site Judas. Stop Jackson before he gets himself killed. You can't go alone. Watch me. Durant grabbed her arm. Listen, Blackwood has 50 operators at that site. Jackson's good, but he's one man. You're good, but you're one woman. 2 against 50 is suicide. Then what do you suggest? Your team, Brennan, Webb, Ortiz, they saw what you did today. They know you're not a traitor. Bring them in. They'll never trust me, not after what you told them. Durant smiled, grim. Then convince them. You're good at that, making people believe you're something you're not. Time to make them believe you're exactly what you are. Vera looked at the weapons rack, at the gear she'd need for what was coming, at the reflection of herself in the laptop screen. She looked tired, older than 34, but her eyes were clear, focused. For the first time in 3 years, she knew exactly what she needed to do. How do I reach Brennan? Durant pulled out an encrypted phone. They're still at the convoy site, waiting for medevac for you to come back. He dialed, handed her the phone. It rang twice. Brennan answered. Who is this? It's Cross. Silence, then. You're dead, the radio said, all KIA. I'm very much alive, and I need your help. Why would I help you? You lied about everything. Not everything. I am a medic. I do save lives. That part was true. The rest. She took a breath. The rest is complicated, but I can explain if you'll listen. Another silence. Longer. She could hear Brennan breathing, thinking, weighing options. Where are you? Vera looked at Durant. He nodded. She gave Brennan coordinates. There's a safe house, 2 clicks from your position. Bring Webb, bring Ortiz, come alone, no backup, no radios, and Brennan. Yeah. Bring your rifle, you're going to need it. She hung up, looked at Durant. They'll come. Brennan's a soldier. He follows orders, but more than that, he's a man who values loyalty. You saved his life today. He'll come. And if he doesn't, then you do this alone, like you've been doing for 3 years. They waited. Vera cleaned weapons, checked ammunition, planned. The mission was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Infiltrate a black site prison, extract a geneticist who'd been tortured for 2 decades, stop her brother from sacrificing himself, and survive against 50 of Blackwood's contractors who'd been chosen specifically because they were the best at killing. 30 minutes later, footsteps outside. Durant checked the window. 3 people, moving tactical, weapons ready, but not hostile, just careful. Brennan, Webb, Ortiz. Durant opened the door. Let them in. They filed inside, saw Vera standing there with a rifle across her back and truth in her eyes. Brennan spoke first. Start talking. So she did. She told them everything. Delta Force. Call sign Revenant. Operation Reaper's Run. The refusal to kill civilians. The team dying. Jackson's sacrifice. 3 years running. The fake identity. The medical degree that was real but the history that wasn't. She told them about her father, about Site Judas, about Blackwood's bioweapon program, about Jackson planning a solo raid in 48 hours, about $500 million worth of hemorrhagic fever that would kill millions if it got sold. She told them the truth, all of it, the good and the bad and the gray space in between where most soldiers lived their whole careers. When she finished, the room was silent. Webb looked shell-shocked. Ortiz looked angry. Brennan looked like he was processing the worst and best news of his life simultaneously. So you're a trained killer who became a medic, or a medic who was trained to kill. Which is it? Both, neither, I don't know anymore. Vera met his eyes. What I know is that my father's been a prisoner for 21 years. My brother's going to die trying to save him. And if we don't stop Blackwood, a lot more people are going to die too. That's the truth. The only truth that matters right now. Brennan looked at Webb, at Ortiz. Some silent communication passed between them. The kind that happened in combat units. The kind that required no words. He turned back to Vera. What do you need? 7 more shooters. Good ones. People who can handle themselves in a gunfight and won't ask too many questions. I can get you 3 from my old platoon, still at Camp Victory. Webb. Webb nodded. 2 from medical company, combat medics who have seen action, they'll come. Ortiz, I know an engineer, demo specialist. If we're hitting a prison, we'll need someone who can blow doors. Brennan did the math. That's 7 including us, against 50, plus whatever security Blackwood has at the site. We're outgunned 10-1. I know. And you still want to do this. I don't want to, I have to. Brennan studied her. This woman who'd been 2 people in one skin, who'd hidden so well even other operators hadn't seen through her cover, who'd saved his life and lied about who she was and now stood here asking him to walk into a meat grinder for a mission that wasn't official and a family he'd never met. He smiled, grim, dangerous, the kind of smile special operations soldiers got when they knew they were doing something stupid and didn't care. When do we leave? Tonight, 2200 hours. We'll hit Site Judas at 400, right before dawn, when they're tired, when Jackson's scheduled to make his move. We go in, extract my father and brother, burn Blackwood's operation to the ground and get out before the sun comes up. And if we don't make it out? Vera picked up her rifle, checked the magazine. Then we die doing something that matters. That's more than most soldiers get. Durant stepped forward. I'll provide overwatch, communications, medevac if you make it out, but I can't go in with you. If this goes wrong, someone needs to tell the story. Brennan nodded, turned to his team. You heard the captain. We've got 6 hours to gear up and get in position. Move. They moved, professional, efficient. The kind of movement that came from years of training and a life lived close to death. Vera watched them go, felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hoping. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. Maybe the family you chose was stronger than the family you were born with. Maybe redemption wasn't something you earned alone in the darkness. Maybe it came from standing beside people who believed in you even when you'd given them every reason not to. She pulled out the photograph, the one she'd carried from Fort Bragg, 4 figures in tactical gear: Frost, Reaper, Wraith, Revenant, her old team, her old life. She looked at it one last time, then she put it away. That team was gone, dead and buried in Mosul, but there was a new team now. Brennan, Webb, Ortiz, and 6 more soldiers who were about to walk into hell because she'd asked them to. Vera Cross, call sign Revenant, former Delta Force operator turned medic turned operator again, checked her watch. 6 hours until mission time. 6 hours until she saw her brother again. 6 hours until she faced the man who'd created her and then tried to destroy her. 6 hours until she found out if she was still a weapon or if she'd finally become something better. Outside, Baghdad burned. Inside, warriors prepared for battle. And somewhere 60 kilometers away, in a concrete prison that didn't exist on any map, a man named Jackson Cross counted down the hours until he could save his father or die trying. The pieces were in motion. The trap was set. And soon, very soon, blood would tell the truth that words couldn't. The night sky over Iraq held no stars, just smoke and heat lightning and the orange glow of a city that never stopped burning. Site Judas sat 60 kilometers northwest of Baghdad, hidden in terrain so barren even scorpions avoided it. 8 concrete buildings arranged in a square, guard towers at each corner, razor wire thick enough to shred a man, and inside 47 prisoners who'd been ghosts for decades. Vera Cross lay prone on a ridgeline 800 meters from the compound. Night vision goggles turned the world green and ghostly. Beside her, Sergeant Kyle Brennan glassed the target through a spotting scope. Behind them, 7 more soldiers prepared to walk into hell because she'd asked them to. The team had assembled at 2200 hours. No speeches, no motivational talks, just gear checks and ammunition counts, and the quiet understanding that some of them wouldn't see sunrise. Specialist Webb carried enough medical supplies to treat a platoon. Corporal Ortiz had packed 40 pounds of C4 explosive. The others, soldiers Brennan had vouched for, carried rifles and determination and the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy. Brennan's voice was barely a whisper. 52 hostiles, guard rotation every 2 hours. Next change is 4:15. That's our window. Vera checked her watch. 3:47 hours, 28 minutes. She scanned the compound through her scope. Building 4 was where the files said prisoners were kept. Building 8, medical experimentation. Building 1, Blackwood's command center. And somewhere in that concrete maze, her brother Jackson was preparing to make his move. Any sign of Jackson? Negative. If he's here, he's ghost. Vera smiled without humor. Jackson had always been the better infiltrator, could disappear in an empty room. 3 years ago, she'd watched him die. Watched an RPG tear through the building where he'd been providing cover fire. Saw the structure collapse. No body recovered because there'd been nothing left to recover. Except he hadn't died. He'd survived. Disappeared. Spent 3 years hunting the man who destroyed their family. And tonight, all those years of preparation came down to one mission: save their father or die trying. The radio crackled. Colonel Durrant's voice from 10 kilometers away. Shepard confirms Blackwood is on site. Arrived 1 hour ago. He knows something's happening tonight. Vera's blood went cold. How? Unknown, but he's doubled the guards. You're walking into a hornet's nest. Brennan looked at Vera, question in his eyes. They could abort, pull back, live to fight another day. It was the smart play, the tactical play, the play that kept soldiers alive. But Vera was done being smart, done hiding, done letting other people pay for her choices. We're going in. Durrant's sigh carried through the radio. I'll have medevac standing by. Try not to need it. The team moved at 400 hours. Single file. Night vision engaged. Weapons ready. They covered the 800 meters in 12 minutes. Professional movement. No sound. No light. Just shadows flowing across barren ground like water finding the path of least resistance. Ortiz reached the perimeter fence first. The razor wire was electrified. Motion sensors every 10 meters. Cameras covering every approach. The kind of security that said someone had spent serious money keeping people out or keeping people in. Ortiz pulled a device from her pack. Military-grade signal jammer. She activated it. The cameras went dark. The motion sensors silent. They had 90 seconds before someone noticed the blackout. She placed shaped charges on the fence. 4 ounces of C4, enough to blow a hole big enough for a man. Quiet charges, designed to cut rather than explode. She armed them, looked at Vera, nodded. The charges detonated with sounds like heavy books slamming shut. The fence peeled open. The team flowed through. 60 seconds gone. They crossed the open ground to Building 4. Ortiz on point. Brennan covering. Webb in the middle with the medical gear. Vera brought up the rear, scanning for threats, her rifle an extension of her body. 30 years of training compressed into movements so automatic they didn't require thought. Building 4's door was steel. Locked. Ortiz placed another charge, stepped back. The explosion was louder this time, had to be. Steel required more force than fence wire. The door blew inward. Alarms screamed. The 90 seconds were up. Now it was a race. Get in. Find the prisoners. Extract. Before Blackwood's 50 contractors converged and turned this rescue into a massacre. The team entered. Long corridor. Fluorescent lights. The smell of disinfectant trying to cover something worse. Cells lined both sides. Vera moved down the line looking through the narrow windows. Saw faces. Gaunt. Hollow. Men who'd been prisoners so long they'd forgotten what freedom looked like. She found him in cell 14. Richard Cross, 59 years old but looking 70. White hair. Skeletal frame. Eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. He sat on a metal bunk, staring at the wall like he'd been staring at it for 21 years, like it was the only thing he knew how to do anymore. Vera's throat closed. This was her father, the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd helped with her homework, who'd kissed her goodnight before vanishing into a war that never ended. And here he was, alive, broken but breathing. She put her hand on the window. Dad. Richard didn't move, didn't seem to hear. PTSD or drugs or just the weight of 2 decades in a cage. Vera tried the door. Locked. Electronic. Ortiz moved up, examined the mechanism. Need 2 minutes to bypass. You have 30 seconds. Ortiz's hands flew. Wires, circuit boards, the kind of work that required steady nerves and perfect knowledge. 20 seconds, the lock clicked. The door opened. Vera stepped inside, knelt beside her father. "Dad, it's Vera, I'm here, we're leaving." Richard's eyes focused, slowly. Like coming back from somewhere far away, he looked at her. Recognition flickered. "Vera, baby." "Yeah, it's me." Her voice cracked. 3 years of holding everything together, and it was her father's broken whisper that shattered her control. "I'm getting you out." "The others?" Richard's hand gripped hers, weak but insistent. "Can't leave the others." Vera looked down the corridor. 46 more cells, 46 more prisoners. They'd planned to extract Richard and Jackson, 2 people. Manageable, but 47, impossible. The math didn't work. The time didn't exist. Blackwood's forces were already mobilizing. Brennan appeared at her shoulder. "Cross, we need to move." "We're taking all of them." "That's suicide." "I know." She stood, looked at her team. 7 soldiers against 50 contractors. Impossible odds, suicide mission. Everything her training said not to do. Ortiz, blow every door. Webb, triage. Anyone who can walk, they walk. Anyone who can't, we carry. We're not leaving anyone. Brennan stared at her. Then he smiled. That dangerous smile that meant a soldier had stopped caring about odds and started caring about what was right. "You heard the captain. Breach and extract, all of them." Ortiz ran down the corridor, placing charges on every cell door. Small charges, precise. The kind that would crack locks without killing the people inside. She reached the end, armed them all. Fire in the hole. The explosions rippled down the hallway like thunder. 46 doors blew open simultaneously. Smoke filled the corridor, and from the cells men emerged, stumbling, weak, but alive. Prisoners from Desert Storm, from the invasion of Iraq, from Afghanistan, Americans who'd been listed as KIA or MIA for decades. Men the government had stopped looking for because corpses were easier than questions. Webb moved among them. Quick assessment. 12 can walk unassisted, 20 need support, 15 can't walk at all. The math was brutal. 7 soldiers, 47 prisoners. 15 who couldn't walk meant 15 who'd slow them down. 15 targets. 15 reasons this mission would fail. Vera made a decision. Walking wounded help each other. We carry the 15. 2 soldiers per litter. That leaves 3 for security. That's not enough security for a fighting retreat. Then we better not fight. We run. But running required a path, and between them and freedom stood 50 contractors who'd been chosen because they were the best at killing. The alarm was still screaming. Lights were coming on across the compound. They had seconds before the storm hit. Vera keyed her radio. "Durant, we have 47 packages. Need immediate evac. Multiple casualties." Durant's response crackled through. "Negative. No birds available for that many. You'll have to hold position until sunrise." Sunrise was 3 hours away. They'd all be dead in 3 minutes. "Copy, we'll improvise." She turned to Brennan. "We need a defensible position, somewhere we can hold until help arrives." "Building 8, medical facility, thick walls, limited access points. It's our best option." They moved, slow. The prisoners who could walk supported those who couldn't. Webb and 3 soldiers carried litters. Brennan and 2 others provided security. Vera took point, rifle up, scanning for threats. They crossed the courtyard, exposed, vulnerable. Any second gunfire would erupt and this rescue would become a slaughter. But the compound stayed quiet, too quiet, like someone was watching, waiting. They reached Building 8. The door was unlocked. That should have been a warning, but they didn't have time for warnings. They entered. The interior was worse than Building 4. medical equipment, examination tables, syringes and blood bags, and the sterile horror of science turned to torture. This was where Blackwood had harvested Richard's blood, where he developed the bioweapon, where 47 men had been reduced to lab rats. Webb set up a triage station, started treating the worst cases: dehydration, malnutrition, infections, wounds that should have killed them years ago but somehow hadn't. He worked with the efficiency of someone who'd seen too much death and refused to accept more. Vera positioned security, Brennan at the main entrance, 2 soldiers at the rear exit. She took the windows. They had maybe 60 seconds before Blackwood's forces arrived. 60 seconds to prepare for a siege they couldn't win. The radio crackled, not during this time. A different voice, younger, familiar. A voice Vera hadn't heard in 3 years but would recognize anywhere. "Vera, you're in Building 8. That's a kill box. You need to get out." Her breath caught. "Jackson." "I'm on the roof of Building 6. I can see the whole compound. They're surrounding you. 50 contractors, armored vehicles, heavy weapons. You walked into a trap." "Where's Blackwood?" "Building 1. Watching. He knew you'd come. He wanted you here." Vera looked at the prisoners, at Webb working frantically to save them, at Brennan checking his ammunition and coming up short. They were trapped, outnumbered 10-1, in a building designed to be a tomb. "Jackson, I'm not leaving these people." "I know, that's why I'm coming to you." "No, it's too dangerous." "Vera," his voice was soft, the way it used to be when they were kids and he was trying to explain something important. "I've spent 3 years preparing for this. 3 years planning. I know every inch of this compound, every weakness, every way in and out, trust me." She wanted to argue, wanted to order him to stay safe, but Jackson had never been good at following orders, especially hers. "What's your plan?" "Create chaos, draw them away from Building 8, give you a window to extract. But Vera, when that window opens, you run. Don't wait for me. Don't look back. Just get Dad and those prisoners out. We extract together or not at all." Jackson laughed, bitter. "You always were stubborn, fine. But when this goes sideways, and it will, remember I gave you an out." The transmission ended. Vera stared at the radio. 3 years of believing her brother was dead, and now he was about to sacrifice himself again. History repeating. Mosul all over again. And this time she was leading the mission that would get him killed. Brennan moved to her position. "Talk to me." "Jackson's going to create a distraction. When he does, we move, all of us, fast and hard." "Where?" "Good question. The compound was surrounded, every exit covered. They needed a way out that Blackwood wouldn't expect, somewhere his contractors weren't watching." Richard's voice, weak but clear. "The drainage tunnel." Vera turned. Her father sat against the wall, looking more alert than he had since she'd found him. "What tunnel?" "Under Building 8, emergency drainage. Leads to a culvert 200 meters outside the perimeter. Blackwood had it built in case of chemical spills, but he doesn't use this building anymore. Probably forgot about it." Ortiz appeared. "I can find it. Give me 5 minutes." "You have to." Ortiz disappeared into the back of the building. Webb continued working on the wounded. Brennan reinforced the barricades, and outside, Blackwood's forces tightened the noose. The first explosion came from Building 6, where Jackson had said he was positioned. The blast was massive, C4 or Semtex, enough to take down half the structure. Secondary explosions followed, ammunition cooking off, fuel igniting. The night turned orange and loud. Gunfire erupted, not aimed at Building 8, aimed at the flames, at shadows, at ghosts. Jackson was moving through the compound like smoke, hitting targets, disappearing, creating the chaos he'd promised. Ortiz's voice on the radio. Found it. Tunnel entrance in the basement. It's tight but navigable. Problem is the grate at the end, locked from outside. Can you blow it? Not without collapsing the tunnel. Vera thought fast. The grate would need to be cut. That required time. Someone would have to go ahead, clear the exit while the rest of the team moved through the tunnel. A volunteer mission, probably one way. I'll go. Brennan grabbed her arm. Negative, you're too valuable. If Blackwood gets you, this whole thing was for nothing. Then who? He looked at the soldiers, at faces young and old, at men who'd signed up to protect their country and now found themselves protecting something more fundamental. The idea that no soldier gets left behind, that loyalty matters more than orders, that some things are worth dying for. One of the soldiers stepped forward, Private First Class Marcus Kane, 23 years old, sniper qualified, quiet kid from Montana who'd barely said 2 words since joining the team. I'll do it. Kane, you don't have to. Respect, ma'am, but I do. My grandfather was MIA in Korea, never came home. If there's a chance those men and their get to go home, someone needs to open the door. He checked his rifle. I'll cut the grate, hold the exit, you get them out. Vera wanted to argue, wanted to order him to stay, but Kane's eyes held the kind of certainty you couldn't argue with, the look of someone who'd already made peace with death and found it acceptable. Go, we'll be right behind you. Kane disappeared into the basement. Seconds later, his voice on the radio, in the tunnel, moving to exit point. The team began moving the prisoners. Slow work. The tunnel was barely 3 feet in diameter, had to crawl. The wounded went first, pushed on makeshift litters. The walking wounded followed. Webb stayed with them, treating as they moved. Brennan coordinated from the entrance. Vera took position at the window, watched Jackson's distraction unfold. He was magnificent. A one-man army, hitting vehicles, destroying equipment. Every explosion drew more contractors away from Building 8, giving them the window they needed. But windows didn't stay open forever. Movement caught her eye. Building 1, the command center, a figure emerged, tall, silver hair. Even at this distance, even in the firelight, Vera recognized him. General Howard Blackwood, 4 stars retired, war hero, arms dealer, the man who'd created her and destroyed her family. He stood on the steps of Building 1 like a king surveying his domain, watching the chaos, not concerned, almost amused. He pulled out a radio, spoke into it. Vera couldn't hear the words, but she saw the result. The contractors stopped chasing Jackson's ghosts, started moving back toward Building 8, tightening the perimeter. Blackwood had figured it out, had realized the distraction was cover for an extraction. The window was closing. Brennan, we need to move faster. We're moving as fast as we can. Not fast enough. Vera counted the prisoners still waiting to enter the tunnel, 12, plus her team, plus Richard. They needed 5 more minutes, but Blackwood's forces would be in position in 3. Kane's voice crackled through the radio. Grate is cut, exit secured, but contact approaching. I've got maybe 90 seconds before they're on me. 90 seconds for 12 prisoners and a team to crawl through 100 meters of drainage tunnel. Impossible math. Vera made a decision. Brennan, get everyone into the tunnel now. What about you? I'm buying time. That's suicide. It's necessary. She checked her ammunition. 4 magazines, 120 rounds, against 50 contractors with automatic weapons and armored vehicles. The math was laughable, but she wasn't trying to win, just trying to delay. Brennan grabbed her shoulder. spun her around. "You don't get to play hero, not after everything, not after getting us to believe in this. Someone has to hold this position. Then we hold it together." He called to the other soldiers. "Collins, Morrison, stay with the captain. Everyone else into the tunnel. Move." 3 soldiers remained. Brennan, Private Collins, Specialist Morrison, 4 rifles against an army. They positioned themselves at windows and doors, created overlapping fields of fire. It wouldn't be enough, but it was something. The contractors hit Building 8 like a wave. Flashbangs through the windows, smoke grenades, suppressing fire that turned the walls into Swiss cheese. Professional assault. By the book. The kind of coordination that came from men who'd done this 100 times. Vera fired, controlled bursts, aiming for weapons, for equipment, disabling rather than killing. Old habits. The part of her that was still a medic refusing to take lives even when her own was on the line. Brennan had no such compunction. He aimed center mass, fired for effect, dropped 2 contractors in the first 10 seconds. They'd been soldiers once, maybe good men, but they'd chosen money over morality, had signed on to guard a torture facility. Whatever sympathy Vera might have had for them died when she saw the prisoner's condition. The firefight lasted 90 seconds, felt like hours. Morrison took a round through the shoulder, kept firing. Collins' rifle jammed. He switched to sidearm. Brennan burned through 3 magazines, and Vera, moving between positions like water, placed shots with surgical precision. But precision wasn't winning. The contractors had unlimited ammunition and reinforcements. The defenders had dwindling supplies and nowhere to run. Webb's voice on the radio. "Last prisoner is in the tunnel. We're clear." Brennan looked at Vera. "Time to go." They moved, fighting retreat, down the stairs to the basement, into the tunnel entrance. Collins went first, then Morrison, bleeding but mobile. Brennan covered their withdrawal. Vera was last, firing backward, keeping contractors pinned while her team escaped. She reached the tunnel, started to crawl, heard Brennan behind her, heard gunfire echoing in the confined space, then Brennan's voice sharp. "Grenade." The explosion collapsed part of the tunnel behind them. Dust and debris filled the air. Vera couldn't see, couldn't breathe, just crawled forward because backward was death. Her hands found boots. Morrison, still moving. She pushed him forward, kept crawling. The tunnel was endless, claustrophobic. Every breath tasted like concrete dust and fear. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying, and she hadn't saved her father just to die in a drainage ditch. Light ahead, pale, dawn breaking, the exit. She pushed Morrison through, climbed out after him, found herself in a culvert 200 meters from the compound. Kane was there, rifle up, covering the exit. The team was there. The prisoners were there. Everyone had made it. Except Brennan. Vera looked back at the tunnel entrance. Nothing. No movement. No sound except the distant firefight at the compound. Brennan, report. Static. Brennan, do you copy? Nothing. She started back toward the tunnel. Kane grabbed her. "Captain, you can't. The tunnel's compromised. It could collapse any second." "I'm not leaving him." He knew the risks. We all did. Vera pulled free, was halfway back to the tunnel when a hand emerged from the darkness, then another. Brennan crawled out, covered in dust, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but alive. He collapsed on the ground, coughed, looked up at Vera. "Told you, we hold together." She wanted to hug him, wanted to cry, wanted to do something other than stand there feeling every emotion she'd suppressed for 3 years trying to break through at once. But there wasn't time. The sun was rising. The compound was 200 meters away. They were exposed. "We need to move." Where? Good question. They were in the middle of nowhere. 47 exhausted prisoners. A team of 8 soldiers running on empty. No transportation. No support. And somewhere behind them, Blackwood mobilizing his forces for pursuit. Richard spoke up. There's a road 5 clicks east. Supply convoys use it. If we can reach it, flag down help. 5 kilometers. 3 miles. With prisoners who could barely walk. They'd be lucky to make 1 kilometer before Blackwood's vehicles ran them down. But they didn't have a choice. The team moved out, slow, painful. The prisoners leaned on each other. Webb and the soldiers carried the wounded. They covered ground at maybe 1 kilometer per hour. Behind them, the sound of vehicles starting up. Engines roaring, the hunt beginning. They'd made it 2 clicks when the first vehicle appeared. Black Suburban, armored, 3 more behind it. Blackwood's pursuit force. The SUVs could cover 5 clicks in minutes. The team would be run down before they reached the road. Vera checked her ammunition. 1 magazine left, 30 rounds, against 4 vehicles full of contractors. She looked at her team, at faces exhausted beyond measure, at soldiers who'd given everything and had nothing left. Brennan saw it too. We make a stand here, let the prisoners keep moving, buy them time. If we stop, we die. If we run, they catch us anyway. At least this way some of us make it. Vera wanted to argue, but tactical reality was brutal. The team couldn't outrun vehicles, couldn't fight 50 contractors on open ground. Their only chance was sacrifice. Hold the line while the prisoners escaped. She was about to give the order when the sky split open. Not thunder, Apache helicopters, 2 of them, American military, coming in fast and low. The lead bird's chin turret rotated, locked onto the first Suburban. The 30 chain gun spoke, 30 rounds per second of depleted uranium. The Suburban disintegrated, just ceased to exist in a ball of fire and shrapnel. The second Apache engaged the other vehicles. Hellfire missiles streaked downrange. The Suburbans didn't stand a chance. 4 vehicles, 4 explosions, 4 funeral pyres in the Iraqi desert. The helicopters circled once, then landed. Troops poured out, not regular army. These were operators, special forces, the kind who didn't exist on paper and didn't ask questions. The team leader approached Vera. Captain Cross, we're here to extract. Who sent you? He smiled. Someone who believes in paying debts. The team loaded the prisoners onto the helicopters. 47 men who'd been ghosts for decades suddenly real again, suddenly going home. Webb coordinated medical treatment. Brennan made sure everyone was accounted for. Vera stood apart, watching, trying to process what had just happened. They'd done it, against impossible odds. They'd walked into hell and brought everyone back. No one left behind. Richard found her, put a skeletal hand on her shoulder. You saved us. I just did what anyone would. No, you did what only you could. You remembered that soldiers don't just fight, they save. She turned to him, this man who'd been a prisoner for 21 years, who'd endured torture and experimentation and loss, who should have been broken beyond repair. But his eyes were clear, focused, still fighting. Dad, I'm sorry for everything, for not knowing, for not looking, for taking so long. You're here now, that's what matters. They embraced, father and daughter, separated by war and lies and time, but together again, broken but whole. The moment shattered, gunfire from the compound, heavy, sustained. Someone was still fighting. Jackson. Vera pulled away from Richard, keyed her radio. Jackson, we're extracted, fall back, we'll pick you up. No response. Jackson, acknowledge. Static, then a different voice, cultured, amused, Blackwood. Your brother can't come to the radio right now. He's a bit occupied. Vera's blood turned to ice. What did you do? Nothing yet, but if you want him back, you'll come get him. Alone, unarmed, just like old times. That's not happening. Then watch him die. I'm streaming it now. One of the operators handed Vera a tablet. On the screen, live feed from the compound. Building 1, Jackson on his knees. Hands tied behind his back, blood on his face. Blackwood standing over him with a pistol. Blackwood looked at the camera, smiled. Captain Cross, you saved 47 strangers, but you can't save your brother. Some choices never change. He cocked the pistol, put it to Jackson's head. Vera's world narrowed to that screen, to her brother, to the man she'd thought dead for 3 years, to the family she'd just gotten back and was about to lose again. Brennan grabbed her arm. Don't, it's a trap, he wants you. I know. Then you know you can't go. Vera looked at him, at this soldier who doubted her and trusted her and stood beside her through hell. Brennan, I've spent 3 years running from who I was, 3 years trying to atone, but some debts can only be paid one way. By dying. By choosing. She handed him her rifle. Get these people home, that's an order. Vera. Take care of my father, tell him I'm sorry. She walked toward the compound before anyone could stop her, before she could change her mind. The sun was fully up now. The desert stretched gold and red, beautiful in the way that killing grounds often were. She crossed 200 meters, unarmed, hands visible, walking toward the man who'd created her, who'd turned her into a weapon, who'd destroyed everything she loved. Blackwood waited on the steps of Building 1. Jackson knelt beside him, alive, defiant, looking at Vera with eyes that said don't do this, but she was already doing it, was already committed. She stopped 10 meters away, let him go. Why would I do that? Because you want me. That's what this was always about, breaking me, proving I'm still your weapon. Blackwood descended the steps, circled her like a predator. You're not my weapon anymore. You proved that en route Irish. You can't kill when it matters. You've gone soft. Maybe, or maybe I've evolved. Evolved, he laughed. You call weakness evolution. I taught you to be perfect, a medic who could kill, a killer who could heal, the ultimate operator, and you threw it away for what? Conscience. Humanity. Same thing, both get you killed. He pulled his pistol, not the one aimed at Jackson. A second one, held it out to Vera. Prove me wrong, shoot your brother. Show me you can still pull the trigger when it counts. Do that and I'll let you both live. Refuse and you both die. The old test, the impossible choice. Save yourself by damning your soul, or keep your soul and lose everything. Vera looked at Jackson, her brother, her best friend, the person who died for her once already. He shook his head. Don't. She looked at Blackwood, at the man who thought humanity was weakness, who believed the only way to win was to become a monster. She took the gun. Blackwood smiled. That's my girl. Vera checked the chamber. Loaded, she looked at Jackson, at his eyes that held forgiveness already, permission, an understanding that whatever she chose, he wouldn't blame her. She raised the gun, aimed it at Blackwood's head. You're right, I can pull the trigger when it counts. She fired. The round took Blackwood between the eyes. Perfect shot. Instant death. The general dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The man who'd built empires on suffering, who'd tortured prisoners and sold bioweapons and destroyed families. Gone in the time it took a bullet to travel 10 feet. Vera lowered the gun, looked at Jackson. You okay? Jackson, still tied, still on his knees, started laughing. You just executed a 4-star general. Retired general, and he had it coming. She cut his bonds, helped him stand. They looked at each other. 3 years of separation, 3 years of grief, 3 years of believing the other was dead, and now here they were, alive, together, survivors. I thought you were done killing. I am, that was the last one, I promise. Jackson pulled her into a hug, held on like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. Doesn't count if he deserved it. Behind them, the sound of helicopters, the extraction team arriving, but not just extraction. Colonel Durant stepped out, accompanied by a woman Vera had never seen, 50 years old, gray hair, eyes that had seen everything and judged accordingly. Captain Cross. The woman's voice carried authority. I'm Deputy Director Sarah Vale, CIA. You can call me Shepard. The name from the card, the safe house, the person who'd been protecting Vera since Mosul. You're the one who sent the Apache. Among other things, I've been tracking Blackwood for 5 years, waiting for the right moment to move. You gave me that moment. What happens now? Vale looked at Blackwood's body, at the compound, at the evidence of crimes that went back decades. Now we clean up. Officially, Blackwood died in a helicopter crash. Site Judas never existed. The POWs were rescued in a classified operation, and you and your team were never here. And the bioweapon? Secured, destroyed, the research data with it. Vera studied Vale. You're covering it up. I'm containing it. There's a difference. The prisoners go home to their families. Blackwood's network gets dismantled, and the American people never have to know their government ran torture facilities on foreign soil. Everyone wins. Except the truth. Vale smiled, sad, understanding. The truth is a luxury, Captain. Justice is what matters, and today justice won. Vera wanted to argue, wanted to demand accountability, transparency, all the things the oath said mattered, but she looked at her father being loaded onto a helicopter, at Jackson standing beside her, at 47 men who'd spent decades as ghosts finally becoming human again. Sometimes justice wore a gray uniform. What about my team? Honorable discharge, full benefits, medical care for the POWs, and my personal gratitude. Vale extended her hand. You did good work today, Captain. Vera shook it. I was just a medic doing her job. No, you were a soldier remembering why we fight. Not for countries or causes, for each other. That's the only thing that matters. 6 months later, Vera stood in a small clinic in rural Montana. The sign outside read Cross Family Medicine. Inside, her father reviewed patient files. His hand still shook sometimes. The nightmares still came, but he was healing, slowly, in the way that broken things heal when given time and safety and love. Jackson worked in the back office. Officially, he was a security consultant. Unofficially, he helped find other POWs, other prisoners who'd fallen through bureaucratic cracks. Shepard fed him intel. He made them disappear from prisons and reappear in their homes. Quiet work, the kind that didn't make news. Brennan and the others had scattered. Webb went back to school, finished his degree, became a psychiatrist specializing in veteran trauma. Ortiz joined a private security firm, used her skills to protect aid workers in conflict zones. The others found their own paths, but they stayed in touch. The bond forged in fire didn't break just because the war ended. Vera treated patients, broken bones, infections, the everyday maladies of a small town. It was quiet, simple, everything she'd dreamed about for 3 years. But some nights when sleep wouldn't come, she'd look at the rifle locked in her closet, the one with the expensive scope, the one that had saved lives and taken them, the weapon that was also a tool. the killing machine that was also an instrument of healing. She'd think about Blackwood, about the bullet that ended him, about whether killing him made her a murderer or an executioner, whether justice and revenge were the same thing or opposites, whether she was a medic who could kill or a killer who could heal. The questions never had answers, just more questions. The phone rang. Vera answered. Cross Family Medicine. Vale's voice. We found another one. Desert Storm POW. Prisoner in Syria. Your brother's already on it, but he needs medical support. Vera looked at the clinic, at the quiet life she'd built, at the peace she'd earned. She could say no, could stay here, could let someone else handle it. But she knew she wouldn't, because some debts got paid forward, because being a soldier wasn't about the uniform. It was about standing up when others couldn't, about fighting for people who'd given up hope, about being the person who walked into hell and brought everyone back. Give me the coordinates, I'm on my way. She hung up, grabbed her medical bag, checked the rifle, started the truck, and as she drove toward whatever was waiting, toward the next mission and the next test and the next impossible choice, she thought about Brennan's words. We hold together. That was the truth, not the one governments told or history recorded, the real truth, the only one that mattered. Soldiers don't abandon each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Vera Cross, former Delta Force operator, former weapon, current medic, drove into the sunrise, toward danger, toward duty, toward the next person who needed saving. Because that's what medics did. They saved everyone, even the ones who hurt them, especially the ones who'd given up. And if that meant picking up a rifle sometimes, if it meant walking the line between healer and warrior, if it meant carrying the weight of choices no one should have to make, then so be it. Some debts could only be paid in action. Some promises could only be kept in blood. Some battles could only be won by people willing to fight them. She'd spent 3 years running from who she was. Now she knew the truth. She wasn't running anymore. She was moving forward, toward the people who needed her, toward the mission that mattered, toward redemption measured one saved life at a time. The truck disappeared over the horizon. Behind her, a clinic that would wait, a father who would worry, a brother who would have her back. Ahead, someone who needed saving. And Vera Cross, medic and warrior, healer and fighter, the woman who chose not to be a weapon but to wield one for the right reasons, drove toward the sound of the guns. Because that's what soldiers did, what they'd always done, what they'd always do. They answered the call. They held the line. They brought everyone home. No matter the cost. I spent 3 weeks researching military medical protocols and Delta Force operations to get Vera's story right. The hardest part, understanding how someone trained to kill can choose healing instead, and how that choice becomes its own kind of courage. What hit me most, the real soldiers who inspired this carried both a rifle and a medical bag. They made impossible choices every day: save or shoot, fight or heal. Question for you veterans out there. Have you ever served with someone like Vera? Someone the unit underestimated until the moment everything went sideways? Drop your stories below. And if this one earned your respect, the next mission drops Friday. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Every comment helps me understand what stories matter most to you.